All right. I am here with Redg Snodgrass, and he is the co-founder and CEO of EdgeIn. How's it going, Reg?
Thank you very much, Steve. Glad to be here.
Yeah. I'm excited to unpack your success, and we'll unpack some of the stories there. And we were talking offline before this, and I'm eager to hear more. But before we do unpack some of the crazy experiences you've had, let's talk about your background. What got you started in business and entrepreneurship?
I think a lot of us, we don't know who we're going to be or what we're going to do. And I was, 27, really trying to figure that out. I got offered a role at Square Trade, which at the time was an eBay startup, super, super tiny group. And we got to build a warranty division. I went from an intern to managing like a third of the company in 6 months. I thought I was going to be a rock star. I thought startups were for me. Worked with a guy trying to do a startup right after that. So I caught the bug of what it's like to go from 0 to 1 million in revenue in a few months, and that that rush, right, keeps me coming back.
Yeah. Yeah. That whole like market pulling you feeling of giving something of value out there is pretty incredible bug that you can't shake.
Yeah, and it drove me on. I mean, it's you propel yourself forward in ignorance, and energy when you're younger. And so I went and joined a small analyst group called Under the Radar and learned about the mobile industry and found the startup called Scout. And I jumped immediately at the chance. It was the first iPhone dating app, and eventually Andreessen would put money in the company, and it's sold off to IAC. But building the business model, the business case with the founders, and like it was just one thing after another. Man, you just uh, again, it was just another moment in my career where I got to see no growth to viral growth to lots of revenue, and it is the rush. It's the gambler's rush, right? Where you're
Mhm.
always wanting to go back in and do one more thing and one more thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And with Scout, how was what was the trigger that really set it off? Because I remember hearing about Scout, and I remember seeing multiple people talking about it. And this was a long time ago, but what was it that you think really set it in the viral direction?
I would say very, very early on, Christian, the CEO, um, he used the product. He used product every day. And he was a married guy, but he wasn't. But we were all on that product. We used it religiously. We were in it. And I
Hmm.
think that if you get good, strong, intelligent people that are in it and like working with the users, working with the problems, it's a different kind of product build,
Hmm.
being in it. And so I think that when, I think there was a point in time when we really understood our use case, which was going to be dating, and we were going to go after revenue. And we almost like had a battle royale on the floor of like, should we charge users or not? Oh no, everything is going to die. And we did, and the guys like were amazing at that, and that was what I think is one of the things that you should try to be is in the product, in as a user, because if you're not there, you're just building a it's like building a Frankenstein. You'll have a lot of body parts but no life.
Yeah, yeah. And I actually had coffee with one of the founders of OkCupid back in the
Okay.
day, and probably like 2014 or so. And I remember talking about the KPIs that they were tracking, and it was just like what you described, where it was the shift to try and charge was just this sort of crazy situation, and it was very different, very big change for
No,
sure.
I think that was one of the things with EdgeIn, and I know we'll get into it, is we started charging right away. We went live in October. We were, started billing in June, like
Mhm.
last year, right? Sorry, went live in October, started billing in January. My brain's fried. I'm in Madrid, upside down. And I mean, that's like making that intentional choice and then trying to figure out around that choice of pros and cons with the users is scary. It, you
Mhm.
know, you know, it can kill growth if you don't have the ability to continue to grow. but because you're blocking some of your more valuable, tangible pieces in order to prove something. Because when you're early, all you're really trying to prove is to a couple investors that, yeah, of course, buddy, someone's gonna buy this. See,
Yeah.
I did it. It took me a week. Okay, can we go back to like a normal conversation? But in this marketplace, you got to be prepared to, kind of, stick it in there and try to make revenue right away. So
Yeah. Yeah.
same thing with Scout. Yeah, I
The
mean
change
that's
in
the thing is,
KPIs.
yeah, sorry, the market back then in '06, '07, Sequoia made a capital call and their LP said no. That hasn't happened in this market. The market was arguably like more brutal then than it was today. You always have to prepare for these kind of market ditches. If you're
Mhm.
if you're doing a product for more than 2 years, you're always going to hit some kind of snag like we have today.
Yeah. Yeah. Well said. And when it comes to changing KPIs, let's talk a little bit about, you had the Scout trajectory that was really, by all measurements, a success. And then we get into read write. So the change in KPIs, what types of KPIs were you tracking at read write?
Well, so yeah, I think that was so where I would call it the transition is as I left Scout because I got offered this crazy opportunity at Alcatel-Lucent Bell Labs to do APIs for all of telecom, and they gave me the Apogee product, which Apogee was bought by Google, super cool, and I got to
Mm-hmm.
work with thousands of engineers to rebuild that in a new business model for telecoms. And that experience plus Scout, right? Scout's experience gave me the understanding of need for business model, need for understanding virality and growth. The very last project we worked on together, which was amazing, was the Geo Telecom project, JIO in India. And Alon's with me at this one. He was at Bell Labs then. It's a viral telecom model where you give data and devices away for free, and you make money off the service layer, a lot like Scout. And I pitched that model, and that's the one that they adopted and accepted. And so, um, you know, walking through my career, what I learned from Scout was, understanding a market, understanding a business model. Going into like this bigger company as my next layer of trajectory was a lot about understanding how these giants worked, like these giant market apparatus work. So right immediately after that, I was bored, and so I had a co-founder, and we started this company called Taploid, which was all about sentiment analysis and uh, it's basically your friend's Facebook social graph, and we would run AI on top of it and create a language model to tell you interesting things about your friends. Um, all of those things pointed to me that I just needed to figure out how do I build a lot of ideas all at once. And so Wearable World was the first name of the company. We later bought Read Write Web, which was a larger media publication, and put the two together. So I started an accelerator media company um, in right after I got out of right after I got out of Bell Labs, Alcatel-Lucent Bell Labs, on all these other big projects. And I'd messed around a little bit with the AI stuff, but we realized it was way too early back then, and I I wanted to help entrepreneurs. And
Mm-hmm.
so we it was right at the beginning of Google Glass, right? And and everybody was crazy about that. And we saw wearables starting to catch on. So I had a co-founder of that business, Kyle Ellicott, and we started. We I talked Technicolor, which is a big company. Again, this is working with big companies and giving us office space. And we threw a huge event for wearable companies, and we had 20 companies, 30 companies apply for our first cohort. And so from there, that tiny, like, little idea where somebody gave us office space, that company grew into a media brand where we had events in 32 countries around the world. It was the largest IoT and wearable news publication at the time with, I think our newsletter was around 5 million subscribers total. And I went and I raised, I think it was another $5-6 million in China to do cross-border IP with the Chinese government, and have a media company there. So read write in 2015, 2016 was like a rocket ship. We were being mentioned in articles of Forbes with Techstars and with YC and with all these other groups. And I was able to basically hire away VentureBeat's CEO and chief revenue officer. And I went off to China to raise this money. And so the company went, like I said, from a standing, walking, hey, let's help out entrepreneurs, into a portfolio of around 114, 115 companies that went
Wow.
through the program, globally. And yeah, I mean, I would say we were about 75 people at the time.
Wow. Wow.
Super
That's
fun.
it.
A lot of incredible people that have gone on to do amazing things for McKinsey, or started their own accelerators, or built their own startups. But that group, that tribe, that was at its height, Read Write had a lot of power.
Hmm. Hmm. I remember, and I still remember the brand of Read Write. It's definitely a strong, strong brand. And I remember hearing a little bit about companies that were like, I kind of remember it as being backed, but it was like an accelerator program. Now, of understanding it from you, so was that the main driver, like the success metric that you guys were tracking was the
Yeah,
amount of
look,
startups?
at the time, it was no secret that TechCrunch and YC were just deeply embedded, right? So when
Mhm.
I took my approach of what should I build, I thought, well, I'll build something that's accessible. So any entrepreneur, they don't have to be from a certain pedigree or a certain school. As long as they were, a strong founder, they could get into the Wearable World program, and they could get some media consideration with ReadWrite. And so that
Mhm.
was pulling those two things together and having an event on top of that. That's what I tried to build. That's what kind of was a little punchy, I guess, because it did compete. But it's helpful. Like, yeah, you come from Europe, you come from Asia, and you're blocked. Or at least back then, it was even worse than it is today, because you didn't have any media representation like what Mike Butcher does, or or Robin Waters from
Yeah.
Tech.eu. And I had a house, and it was full of entrepreneurs. There were probably 15 people sleeping there all the time. It was crazy.
Nice.
So
So this experience was a real like gauntlet, I guess, in terms of going through the acquisition from when we were talking about it before. So can you walk us through a little bit of what went down and how big the team was while the transaction happened?
so we, I think there were several strategic things that I didn't count on, right? I mean, I raised a lot of money for cross-border IP transition, right? And in 2016, something happened. Trump got elected. Now, it's not even, don't want to say it's Trump or this or that, but there was a fundamental change with how policy was going to happen in China. No one knew what was going to happen. And so those deals froze, and I had a significant amount of health problems. I'd gotten diverticulitis, which, we can talk about your health. It's like where your lower intestine just slowly melts because you're, you know, trying to kill yourself every day. And so I'd had several health problems, and my father passed away all at the same time. And for me to keep my eye on the ball, my like make it, because I wasn't going to be able to make it, right? Just mentally and emotionally and exhausting. And so the team went through a process of selling off the assets of ReadWrite, selling, um, and so yeah, I mean, during that process and that time, I mean, it was one of the most grueling, painful things for me. I mean, coming from an area where I had 120 startups, where they'd raised hundreds of millions of dollars, right, and to where I didn't have anything. It was just brutal. It was hard for me to look at, and so I had to make a decision, um, and had to take that offer, that exit that just wasn't the one that I wanted. Right? We could get into that, but it's just brutal. I will say this: when you go through an exit, raising money is hard. but the intensity and the stress that you go through when you're understanding an exit, good or bad, right? When it's good, it's always like someone can, it's, is going to take something away from you any
Mhm.
minute. And when it's bad, it's like, why are they dragging this out so long? Well, I mean, I came back home, kind of heartbroken, dad, not knowing where the China business was going to be going. Um, and I was maxed out, right? Just completely maxed out financially, everything else like that. And even the company was struggling financially, so we had to find a buyer to offload the assets, and break up the company. The both the portfolio, the like main company, and then selling off the assets. The guy that actually founded ReadWrite is one of the most brilliant guys. I've respected him. I followed the publication forever. I was able to acquire that, and start to put it to good use again. That was what made me excited. So it's like, having every bit of your soul kind of, you spend like 5 years and God, I don't know, it was, $12 million in investment and at least another 12-15 million in revenue, right? Building
Mhm.
something. You pour everything into it. Letting it go isn't easy, but also sometimes like, your body maxes out to a certain point. You just can't continue. um I don't know. There's some entrepreneurs who cruise through life because people bail them out, right? You get the right investors, you can get bailed out of a bad startup, right? And then there's some of us that just, you have to grind out your exit. You have to deal with the consequences of whether or not you can survive and fight another day.
Yeah.
Um,
Well said. I like that. And let's talk a little bit about it was selling the assets. Did you guys hire like a broker to help
no,
with
we
it
were
or?
able to move most of it ourselves,
Oh,
right?
wow. Okay.
I am a fan of like using broker services, right? Especially if they're good. They're worth their money. They make money because they make you money, right?
Yeah.
Never,
Yeah.
I don't do a lot of like upfront front fees. Never agree to anything crazy up front. It's just stupid, especially if they're getting you on the front and back. A good person
Mhm.
already knows who they're going to sell you to when they call you on the phone.
Yeah. 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 And how big was the team when the kind of breakup happened?
So I would say the team had gone from 70 to still around 30 people.
Okay.
So, some went to this new entity called Topio, uh,
Hmm.
and so you get a good majority of that team there. A few people went over to manage the portfolio, and then the rest, the read write, all that other stuff went with read write.
Got it. So what about you? What happened? Was it 6 months after? Was it a year after? How long did it take you to start your next thing?
Oh man, I was heartbroken. Michael Loeb from Loeb NYC. He's this amazing entrepreneur. He did Priceline and Synapse. He's one of my investors. He asked me to be an entrepreneur in residence. So my wife and I, freshly married, moved to New York and got to see how like that operation works. And he's a machine, like how he builds businesses and stuff like that. I would take a break for a little bit, and went to Ljubljana, being in Europe with my wife. They were building a 5G network, and they asked me to help. It's like an autonomous living lab, super cool stuff. It's like, sure. Um, I went, and the startup that I started after that was Citizen Grown, and this has a lot to do with my dad. My dad was this notorious drug dealer in Oklahoma, right? So his drug bust was one of the largest drug busts in Oklahoma history. We won't get into it too much, and so, um, we had a in the portfolio. There's a startup called Cloudponics, and the guys came to me and they wanted me to come up with an idea and, help them. All the startups always help you. And so, I put together one of our models, which was, distributed, grow, where you make revenue by basically selling it through a supply chain. We raised $3.5 million to take that to market, and that's still growing in Oklahoma. So, I did that. That was right before the pandemic, and now, um, I'm back to my passion, which is helping builders grow and build new things. with EdgeIn.
Nice. Nice. So that takes us to the finale question of knowing what you know now. What would you tell yourself 10 years ago?
I Man, I give myself this pep talk a lot, and the older I get, the more I start to realize that your tribe, that you support, that you grow through with, right, is going to be the most important element that impacts your startup, your career, everything. And um, yeah, I'd say I'm like four generations in the valley now. I've seen four or five major things, and it's the people that get to, I have my tribe of fellow entrepreneurs when I was young, in my early 30s, late 20s. Same people I hang out, I still am with them. One's, executive of chief digital officer of the dollar store. And one is, was the CTO of San Francisco. One is the CEO of Europe TripAdvisor, right? They're all these people that you grow up with. And um, as you grow up, I mean, you shouldn't think of people as tools, right? But in reality, they are tools for you. Now, if you treat your tools like crap, they don't last very long. They burn out, they break, everything else like that. But if you like really care for this tool set, take care of it. Everybody is a tool set that you can go back to and build new things together and do great things together. And so I would have catered to my tribe significantly amount more. I'd take care of my people better,
Hmm.
right? I would have, you see it in like the PayPal mafia, or what Elon does. Like everybody has a tribe, and it's you're only you can only be so successful by yourself. But if you are working with a lot of people who are throwing their money in, who are making sure that you don't fail and pushing you up in your career, you will be one of the top tribes, right? And so start to think of your entrepreneur journey more as like, how do you enable your entire tribe to get better, versus not. So that was it. I mean, I think Paul Bragiel was one of my favorite guys. I don't know if you know him. He's at Golden Gate Ventures or whatever. Um, he was like, one of my last guy got it. I was like, what do you mean? He's like, well, one of the last guys I came with to the Valley became a millionaire today. And that was a point of pride for him because like they all came up together. You know,
Hmm.
I I can think of countless times Brennan Uribe when he talks about all the people that put in to Oculus with him early on and how they all became millionaires and threw him a party. If 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 I could do anything better, and I do love my people, I'm not saying I'm not that way, but I would really learn that part, and that is what will carry you into any success, failure, exit, anything in life, as your tribe.
Well said. Well said. So, shifting gears, what are you building now and what stage are you at?
I'd say super pre early stage, but almost, oh dear God, are we going to die? Right? Everything has been a rolling close in this market because I'm ambitious and I want to do something big. And so we're building. Eh, let me say this way. I think one of the hardest things in venture today, building a company, funding a company, is accessibility to data. Clean, clear, reliable data sets that give you good information, that can give you good knowledge. And, I want to build something that allows for any builder to be able to get the data that they need and not have to pay a ton of money for it. And so what EdgeIn is, we call it a community knowledge data set where everyone pulls in data from the industry, and EdgeIn has a way we use our AI, we synthesize it and give it back to you in a really clean, clear UI UX. We're a year in. We've raised it, don't judge me too much. We got 60 million data points and only 800,000 spent on the app right now. And so it's a lot of work, and we're in viral growth mode. So we're like 300% since we started our new growth plan, week on week. It's freaking crazy. Um, and we're charging people. So it's 15 bucks a month. We just want to, like, I would love to build an app that gives everybody Crunchbase, PitchBook, LinkedIn, all the functionality of all these major social applications for $15 and really stick it to the man because it's your data set anyway. That's It's your employment data, startup data, fund data. They take it, and the average entrepreneur doesn't have access to it. That's what I want to do, is just build that data set and set it loose for everybody. That makes me happy right now.
Nice, nice. And where can people go and learn more about it?
EdgeIn.io, EdgeIn.io. Get your edge in the next market. Right now it's Web3 Insights. We'll have a lot of new markets coming soon now that we're starting to get a rhythm of what one market looks like. We're going to take out the big players that nobody likes and
Cool.
try not to be disliked ourselves.
Very nice. Very nice. Well, those are all the questions I have for you, Reg. Wherever you guys are listening on iTunes or Spotify, the links that Reg mentioned will be in the show notes. But thanks so much for coming on and sharing your story.
Oh, thank you so much, man. This is the first time I've actually told that story. You're gonna have a lot of people be curious about it. So I thank you for letting me actually have a voice, man. Keep doing what you're doing. It's helpful.